Okay, let's look at section 7, which is about inequalities. Now, first of all, they expect you to remember a couple of things, so let's refresh your memory. Over here on the right, if you have less than or greater than, when you go to graph those, we use parentheses on the graph. If you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we use brackets. It's easy to remember because you have a straight line with the equal to, and a bracket has a straight line on the bottom also. The other thing they expect you to remember is when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you flip the sign. So keep those things in mind as we look at this example. It says negative 3x plus 5 is greater than negative 7. Now we want to get the x by itself just like we would with an equals. The only difference is when you have an equals, you end up with one answer that makes it true. When you have a greater than, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of answers that make it true. So let's start just like an equals. Let's subtract the 5 from both sides. I'm going to do minus 5, minus 5. So now I'm going to have negative 3x is greater than negative 12. Okay, next step to get x by itself is to divide by negative 3. So I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Now remember what we learned over here on the right. Okay? When you multiply or divide by a negative number, so when the number with the x is negative, you flip the sign. So now I'm going to have x is less than positive 4. Now what that tells me is every number less than 4 makes that original statement right here a true statement. 4 is not going to work because it doesn't have equal to, but everything less than 4 will work. So let me show you how that is done on a number line. So draw your number line, put 4 on it. Now you often hear me say, move your letters to the left, your numbers to the right. That's what I did here. I moved my numbers to the right. I keep my letters on the left. If you do letters left, numbers right, you can follow your arrow when you shade. So if you look above that, our arrow goes to the left, and I'm going to shade to the left. Now the next thing I need to look at is right here, do I need a parenthesis or a bracket? It doesn't say equal to, so I'm using a parenthesis, and you want to face the way that you shaded. Now the last thing we're going to look at for this example is called interval notation. I like to look at it as left end point, right end point. Okay, so if I look over here, I'm looking at my shaded part. My left end point, I don't really have one. It's negative infinity. Now we always use a parenthesis for infinity because you cannot equal infinity. Okay, now let's look at the shaded part again. My right end point is a 4 with a parenthesis. So I put comma 4 with a parenthesis. So interval notation, left end point is negative infinity with a parenthesis because you cannot equal infinity. My right end point is positive 4 and it had a parenthesis on the end because there was no equal to. So it's negative infinity, comma, positive 4. So on the test, they typically ask you to graph it and to write your answer in interval notation. So those are the two things that they'll be looking for when you take a test.